It is Friday, October 16th, 2020. I'm in the middle of reading out my Pedigree of the Phoenix, the total solar eclipse sunbird website that went down in 2006. It's essentially about how the phoenix and other mythical birds and bird gods, most notably the Egyptian solar falcon god Horus, were inspired by a bird-like pattern that's perceivable in the sun's corona during some total solar eclipses. I'm not going to say much more because I've already said plenty in the previous videos. I'm not going to go into much more of an intro, just going to start reading. The prominent 19th century British astronomer Edward Walter Maunder, FRAS, that's Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, may well have been the first person to publicly propose that the winged sun disk symbol was an ancient depiction of the sun's corona, specifically the type of coronal structure which is commonly observed during the sun's minimum phase of sunspot activity. In Sunday Magazine for October 1883, he wrote that the corona of this type was the origin of the ring with wings, the symbol which on Assyrian monuments is always shown as floating over the head of the king, which is designed to indicate the presence and protection of the deity. He later wrote a much more detailed and more purely scientific article titled An Old Record of the Corona, which was published in the British scientific journal Knowledge of January 1st, 1897. So that's like 14 years later, actually. Rather than trying to paraphrase the highly convincing and even remarkably eloquent words of E. Walter Maunder, FRAS, I will instead quote quite extensively from this magazine article in the hope that he would be most pleased that his words are once again being read, and in the expectation that the copyright on his article expired some time ago. So here we go. But some among the ancients had a very considerable knowledge of astronomy, and there can be little doubt that the Chaldeans, to whom the invention of the Saros, or 18 years eclipse cycle, is supposed to be due, had a fairly clear idea as to the cause of solar eclipses, and therefore, as they were able, to a certain extent, also to predict their occurrence. The great overwhelming terror which the ignorant felt cannot have been shared by them to the same extent. Their minds will have been free to receive the impressions which the details of the eclipse would create. And what would those impressions have been? We must remember that they worship the sun, moon, and planets. We are not to suppose that in doing so, the more thoughtful conceived that the actual material sun which they beheld was itself the intrinsic deity. The untaught and thoughtless may indeed have done so, but to the cultured there can be little doubt that the sun was regarded partly as a symbol, partly as a manifestation of the unseen, unapproachable divinity. Its light and heat, its power of calling into active exercise the mysterious forces of germination and ripening, the universality of its influence, all seem to fit the expressions of the yet greater powers which belong to the invisible. What happened in a total solar eclipse? For a short time, that which seemed so perfect a divine symbol was completely hidden. The light and heat, the two great forms of solar energy, were withdrawn. But something took their place. A mysterious light of mysterious form, unlike any other single form, was seen in its place. Could they fail to see in this a closer, a more intimate revelation, a more exalted symbolism of the divine nature and presence? Just as in the various Greek mysteries, the student was gradually advanced from one set of symbols to another, even more abstruse and esoteric. So here, on the broad face of heaven itself, vouchsafed for a brief space of time and at long intervals apart, the deity revealed himself to the initiated by a higher and more difficult symbol than ordinarily. So I'm just going to say that, in fact, it is possible for total solar eclipses to occur in comparatively rapid sequence over an area. On average, it's somewhere in the order of 350 or 400 years or so between total solar eclipses above any location on Earth. But that's a mathematical average. in real terms, the paths of totality of total solar eclipses regularly overlap within a fairly short time frame. A time frame can be as little as 18 months or so. I've seen not that long ago, I can't remember the exact year off the top of my head, but there was two total solar eclipses took place and within about 18 months of each other, and on the the west coast of Angola, west coast of Africa, in Angola, the paths cross. So you basically had the paths of totality of two total solar eclipses passing above each other within a matter of less than 2 years, and then you can easily have two total solar eclipses appearing over a particular area, within 3 or 4 years, 5 years, even two within a decade would be pretty impressive. And it's not impossible that some ancient people could have seen as many as 3 total solar eclipses within their lifetime. So I just wanted to mention that they're not as rare as one may think when they're concentrated in a particular area, the paths of totality. So let's go on and see what we have to say here. Edward Walter Maunder's article includes 2 illustrations of the total solar eclipse of July 1878, which compares favorably to what he refers to as the ring with wings symbol of Assyria and the Egyptian winged disc symbols. Walter Maunder states, equally with the Chaldeans, the Egyptian priests would or should have regarded the corona as a symbolical revelation of the deity whose usual manifestation they recognized in the sun. And accordingly, we find them employing a symbol which is almost as perfect a representation of the corona of minimum as that which the Assyrians adopted. It should be noted that it is believed that the Egyptians first began using their winged disc symbol circa 3000 BCE, and that the Chaldeans or Assyrians only adopted it 1 millennia later. While it is possible that the ring with wings symbol was developed totally independently by the ancient Chaldeans, it is quite likely that they adopted it from the Egyptians when they invaded Egypt. It is quite evident that they continued to modify their version of the winged sun symbol, whereas the Egyptians formalized it into their more stylized winged disc symbol long before. The Chaldean variants of this ancient religious symbol may be due in part to their ongoing accurate observations of the different forms of the sun's corona as it varied from one total solar eclipse to the next. Continue down here. Okay, so we got some missing illustrations. Let's see what they were supposed to be. The total solar eclipse inspired Pharaoh symbol that E. Walter Maunder described as an Assyrian ring with wings. The presence on Assyrian monuments depicts the god Ashur. Note the solar cross in the disc behind Ashur. Okay, unfortunately we don't have those images. They weren't preserved, but they can be seen elsewhere. Whereas the Egyptians invariably employed outspread vulture wings to depict the equatorial coronal streamers, and only rarely depicted the bird tail of the corona's polar rays, the ancient Mesopotamians were much more inclined to represent their ring with wings or Pharaoh symbol with a bird-like tail, which corresponds very closely to the corona's polar rays. In many cases, the wings and tails of the Mesopotamian ring with wings symbols were not portrayed as being composed of feathers, as were virtually all of their Egyptian counterparts. Quite frequently they were composed of wavy streamers which much more closely resemble the actual plumes and streamers of the sun's corona. So essentially what it comes down to is the Mesopotamian winged sun symbols are actually closer to being depictions, fairly accurate depictions of total solar eclipses than the more stylized, more just bird-like Egyptian ones. And as we saw earlier in a previous video, there's some scientific astronomical drawings from the mid-19th century that are almost identical to how the Assyrians and other cultures depicted the winged sun symbol. Count Eugene Gobelet d'Alviela wrote in Migration of Symbols, "It is very certain that the Mesopotamian disc, thanks to the presence of a pennated tail, exhibits an ornithomorphic character far more accentuated than that of the winged globe of Egypt. Edward Walter Maunder remarks on the corona's polar streamers as they were depicted in an astronomical illustration of the 1878 total solar eclipse drawn by Emile Trouvelot as follows. So that's Etienne Leopold Trouvelot. Mr. Trouvelot adds a third detail, and this drawing is one of the most accurate and detailed ever made, and is abundantly confirmed by the photographs. He shows around each pole of the sun a number of diverging streamers, like a fan of light. Now the Assyrians not only frequently insert the figure of their deity within the ring, but whenever they do so, they represent him with a kilt-like dress. And when they show the ring without the finger, the kilt is given still, indicating that it is not simply a garment, but an integral part of the symbol. In sum, the resemblance of the pleatings of the kilt to Trouvelot's polar rays is practically perfect. If this be a mere chance coincidence, it seems to be a most extraordinary one. And what was I going to say? There was something I wanted to mention. I just want to say ornithomorphic means bird-like. It's a fancy word for looking like a bird. So unfortunately we don't have Emile Trouvelot's scientific astronomical drawing of the sun's corona as seen during the 1878 total solar eclipse over Creston, Wyoming, which reveals the original source of inspiration for the ancient winged disc symbol and winged eye symbol too. It could look like a winged eye as well. I've put the image up elsewhere and we'll get around to showing it. This is just really, I'm just trying to put up as much as I can in terms of narration, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, we still got less than 8 minutes left, still got time though. I think that it should be clearly understood that it is by no means a mere chance coincidence that the kilt or bird tail that is depicted on numerous Mesopotamian ring with wing symbols corresponds so closely to the polar rays or streamers of the sun's corona that are seen only during a total solar eclipse. It should be clearly evident to us that many centuries before Emile Trouvelot, for the benefit of modern science, accurately sketched the details of the corona of the total solar eclipse which he observed taking place over Creston, Wyoming in July of 1878. Mesopotamian artisans were busy chiseling comparably accurate images of the total solar eclipse or total eclipse of the sun onto stelae and bas-relief murals for the benefit of their priests and rulers. A vivid description of the sun's corona published in the total solar eclipse of May 1900, which was a scientific report on this total eclipse, reads, "The sky was blue all around the sun, and the effect of the silvery corona projected on it was beyond anyone to describe. I can only say it seemed to me that angels' wings would be like. I can only say it seemed to me what angels' wings will be like." Elsewhere in Maunder's book, H. Keatley Moore reports, "Perhaps it comes from my reproducing the poetical name of angel's wing given to the great northwest streamer by a gifted friend, that I yield to a suggestion in higher quarters and like a fool rush in where angels fear to tread." So essentially what they're hinting at here is that the winged sun symbol and the bird-like appearance, essentially, I think they're hinting that besides inspiring depictions of the sun god, basically that depiction of the winged sun god, you could say it evolved into angels down the road. How much time do we have left here? Okay, still have some time. Other turn-of-the-century astronomers did not hesitate to refer to the equatorial streamers of the corona as angels' wings. It is exceedingly ironic, in my view at least, that it is almost certainly the bird-like appearance of the total solar eclipse that inspired the winged anthropomorphic mythical beings that later evolved into beings what we call angels. These winged mythical beings appear in both Egyptian and Mesopotamian religious iconography, often in association with the winged disc symbol. As Philip Henry Goss wrote in Assyria, the notion of guardian deities seems to have been familiar to the Assyrians long before the rise of the Persian monarchy, as we have seen in Colonel Rawlinson's readings of the inscriptions. Asarak, or Ashur, was a tutelary of Assyria. It is therefore no wonder that Assyrian worshippers should assign to him the chief place in the national honor, and even address him as the principal of the gods, and thus the characters, which at first seem inconsistent, of supreme deity and Pharaoh or guardian angel, might easily be united in him who was figured under the symbol of the god of the winged circle. So essentially they're saying here that the Pharaoh is a guardian angel type thing. So here we see Ashur in the winged globe hovering over an Assyrian ruler. Not sure which one. Maybe it'll say here. So I have not rehearsed this. This is just straight off the cuff. The Pharaoh symbol, aka Pharaoh, Pharahavar, Fravahar, and I think also Fravashi, was the name for the Mesopotamian version of the winged sun disk, which represented the Assyrian god Ashur. This symbol was later adapted by the Zoroastrians to represent their supreme god Ahura Mazda. Taking note that this symbol is considered to be synonymous with the god, with the concept of a guardian angel by Philip Henry Goss, we begin to comprehend that the very concept of guardian angels, may well have originated with the ancient religious beliefs which arose from the bird-like appearance of the sun's corona, particularly when we remember that the human figure of the anthropomorphic god is often depicted as an integral part of this winged sun disk symbol. Similar winged anthropomorphic beings are found in the religious iconography of the natives of both North and South America as well. I firmly believe that at least some of these beings can readily be shown to have been inspired by the total solar eclipse sunbird. And let's see how we are for time. Oh, still got a couple of minutes. So I think we can read another paragraph. Whoops, daisy, if we can get to it. Yeah. So, yeah. A Hittite stone relief depicts a winged anthropomorphic being with a bird's head and four wings extending from its back. Its arms are raised and it appears to be holding a winged sun disk over its head. So-called winged genie dominate several Assyrian bas-reliefs, which are now preserved in the British Museum, and these two are usually closely associated with the ring with wings symbol of Assyria. The Assyrian god Ashur was represented by the ring with wings symbol and was often depicted as a human figure carrying a bow and arrow within the solar ring. The bird-like pennated tail of the symbol became the kilt-like dress of the god Ashur, who was thus blended into and became an integral part of the features of the ring with wings symbol. Two such Pharaoh symbols, along with a simple winged sun disk symbol, are illustrated on page 340 of Sir Henry Austen Layard's famous book, Nineveh and Its Remains. And unfortunately we don't have the images here. It says, this anthropomorphic four-winged Hittite bird deity clearly holds up a winged sun symbol above its head. I remember that image quite well, yes. Three examples of Assyrian Pharaoh symbols in an illustration from Sir Henry Austen Layard's Nineveh and Its Remains, so those are missing. Let's see, we're getting into Persia here. I think we're going to wrap it up. Yeah, we've got less than a minute. So before heading into Persian territory, we're going to close off this video clip before it runs out of time, and we'll just start a fresh clip soon.